Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Henry Agrippa. This is Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above and the box down below, along with the original source material and the link from my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy with Part 1, Chapter 18 of the Inclinations of Enmities. We may get to Chapter 19. There are a lot of footnotes. I've tried a different format this time. Hopefully I can keep up. On the Inclinations of Enmities. On the contrary, there are inclinations of enmities, and they are, as it were, the odium and anger, indignation, and a certain kind of obstinate and contrariety of nature, so that anything shuns its contrary, and drives it away out of its presence. Such kind of inclinations hath rhubarb against choler, treacle against poison, and sapphire stone against hot biles and feverish heats, and diseases of the eyes, the amethyst against drunkenness, jasper against flux of blood and offensive imaginations, the emerald and agnus castus against lust, agates against poison, peony, against the falling sickness, coral, against the ebullitin of black choler and pains of the stomach. Let's go ahead and run through these, right? That was a lot of footnotes. The rhubarb against choler we've already discussed, see note 10 in chapter 13. Footnote 2 is treacle against poison. Treacle was a medicinal salve said to be an antidote to serpent bites and other poisons. I should remark, however, that this preparation, it would appear, can only be made from the viper. Some persons, after cleaning the viper in the manner above described, boil down the fat with 1/60 pint of olive oil to 1/2. Of this preparation, when needed, 3 drops are added to some oil, with which mixture the body is rubbed, to repel the approach of all kinds of noxious animals. There are, indeed, concoctions that you can make that will repel pests, right? Vanilla is good for mosquitoes. There are other ones that are good for other animals, and so there are things that you can apply to yourself. Now, whether or not this is an effective one is definitely up for debate, especially since the reference is Pliny, and Pliny has not been reliable in the slightest so far. In later times, snake fat gave way by a process of magical displacement to snake root. It is also important to note that getting fat from a snake is going to be an excessively hard thing to do. And in the exact same way that we have seen some rather hard to obtain things, snakes do not pack on a lot of fat. Right? They hibernate, kind of. They have a stasis they go into through the winter, so they're not really concerned with too much of packing on the weight. They do a small bit, but mainly right before they go to sleep, they eat. Right? There is a small amount of fat attached to any living creature, but for the most part, in the wild, you don't really see it. Right? You get a deer, you kill a deer, there's a little bit of fat. It's not much. Right? We're not trying to make tallow out of deer fat because there's not a whole lot of deer fat, whereas a cow has a lot. And so getting snake fat is going to be an extremely difficult process. Not that it's not possible, it's not nearly as hard as getting the lime from the belly of a cricket, but still kind of tough. Footnote 3, the sapphire stone. In ancient times, this was the name generally applied to blue stones, and particularly to lapis lazuli, the stone described under this name by Pliny. The Book of Secrets says, "It maketh peace and concord, and maketh the mind pure and devout towards God. It strengtheneth the mind in good things, and maketh the man to cool from inward heat." All of that is not true. Right? There is no tool that is going to make you do anything. There are several filters that you can apply to the energy willfully, which will change the energy. That is true. But there is no tool whatsoever that does anything without your energetic investment. And so this stone is absolutely not going to cause peace and accord. It's just simply not going to happen. It is not going to make the mind pure and devout towards God. Simply just not going to happen. Now, you can use it as a focus, right? You can remind yourself by looking at this stone that I need to act in this particular way. And that will make you act in accordance, right? Your association with the stone is an energetic investment. When I see this stone, it makes me think that I need to do things for God. That is a thing that can happen. This is a thing that cannot, right? You are not just going to get a piece of lapis lazuli and never have conflict in your life. That is not going to happen. You are not going to have a mind pure and devout towards God almost ever, right? There are periods of time in your life where you can bring your mortal into accordance with the divine, but for the most part, you are still tied up in the mortal coil. You are still going to face temptations, and part of facing temptations is they are in your mind. That is not a mind pure and devout towards God. You will sometimes be tempted by lust. It doesn't matter if you have a lapis lazuli in your pocket or not. It makes zero difference whatsoever. It is not going to influence your decision unless you pull it out and look at it. And so, once again, we have references to things that simply are not. That is from Albertus Magnus. The Book of Secrets. In the Middle Ages, it was said to preserve the eyes from damage by smallpox if rubbed on them. Again, not true. And there was in the Church of Old St. Paul in London a sapphire given by Richard de Preston for the cure of infirmities in the eyes of those thus afflicted who might resort to it. If that was true, there would be no ophthalmologist in London, right? There would be nobody with an eye problem at all. If this stone that was given to the Church of Old St. Paul in London actually had the power to cure infirmities of the eyes, then everybody in the entire country of England, at a minimum, who had an eye problem would go to the church. They would go to the church and their problem would be taken care of, and they would have no need for a medical doctor to do anything to them. Do you think that's happening? Do you think that is a current situation? Is there somewheres that I am unaware of in London that you can go and they're going to rub a stone on your eyes and cure cataracts or macular degeneration? Is that what's going to happen? No? No? Are they lying to us again? They might be lying to us again. Footnote 4. The amethyst. A transparent purple variety of quartz. The name is from the Greek meaning without intoxication, and its most prevalent use was as an antidote to drunkenness, probably because its color matches that of the grape. That is exactly what's going to happen, right? You're going to get pissed drunk on plonk, walk around just like, just completely insensate. You have drank all the way, and then somebody's going to give you an amethyst, and you're going to be perfectly fine. It's just going to clear it up. It's going to be gone. You're not going to suffer any ill effects. That's exactly what's going to happen. And it's all because it slightly resembles the color of a grape. Now, I've seen grapes. I've seen amethysts. Yeah, they're both purple, but they are not the same shade. The falsehoods of the magicians would persuade us that these stones are preventative to inebriety, and that it is from this that they have derived their name. They tell us also that if we inscribe the names of the sun and moon upon this stone, and then wear it suspended from the neck with some hair from a cynocephalus, a baboon, the feathers of a swallow, it will act as a preservative against all noxious spells. It is said, too, that worn in any manner, this stone will ensure to the access to the presence of kings, and that it will avert hail and the attacks of locusts, if a sudden prayer is also repeated, which they mention. And once again, we have Pliny for something that is probably not true. And once again, I cannot empirically say it, right? I have to couch it in speculation because I have not went and plucked any hairs from a baboon or feathers from a swallow and attached it to an amethyst to see if it was going to prevent any noxious spells. Now, I have the ability to prevent noxious spells. I am shielded and I am grounded, and it is an unwise decision to cast a bad spell in my direction. I promise you that. Don't do it. Right? I don't need a stone. I set that intention for myself on my daily walks. I don't even have to do it every day. It happens naturally. The stone is going to stop you from being drunk. Like, I wish I'd have known that in the fucking Navy. That'd have kept me out of some trouble. I can promise you that. I wouldn't have climbed a mountain and got cussed at by my... I climbed up the mountain pissed drunk in Greece, right? Santorini Island, coming down the big fucking staircase. And me and my homeboy were like, we're going to go climb up the side of this mountain. Pissed drunk. Brilliant idea, right? Shirts off. Like, completely unsat sailors. And we're on the side of this mountain and we're waiting for my boy Casey to take a picture, right? And here comes the captain, the XO, the chaplain, and the command master chief, and the master at arms. And the captain looks at me and he goes, Pittman, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, taking a picture. And he's like, of what? Of us. Get down and get on the fucking ship. Like, I probably could have avoided that if I'd have just had an amethyst. Hell, I was in Greece. Maybe it was a special Greek amethyst that I could get. That would have kept me from getting in trouble. Fucking ridiculous. Jasper's footnote is not really there, so we've already dealt with it. Footnote 6. The emerald. Transparent green stone called by Pliny smaragdus, along with other green stones. It was held to promote constancy and domestic felicity, and in the presence of an unfaithful lover was believed to turn a brown color. I want to put that to the test, but I don't know anybody that cheats on their spouse. I mean, I don't hang around those type of people, so I am unaware of how I can put this to the test. But I'm going to go out on a limb here in my speculation and say that this is a thing that does not occur. Once again, right? We have a consistent pattern developing in this book so far of shit that is just not real. Now, we dealt with a lot of that with Mr. Levi, but it was in a different context. At least he was purposely being deceitful, right? This is just simply ignorance, and I'm not trying to downplay, right? Like, we come to greater understandings through the lens of history. I say that all of the time, right? This was in the 1400s or the 1500s. There was a lot left to learn. We had a lot of growth left to do as a species. And so there was a lot of things that were well into the realm of superstition that people believed were true. This is sorting through that, and I'm trying not to be an asshole about it. I really am, but I like good information, right? I like good spiritual meat that we can dig our teeth into and talk about. And this is not it. Like in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Everything in this is a no, that's not right. That's not correct. I'm not this close to just giving up on this book altogether. Right? If you know that there is some meat coming, let me know, so that I can at least look forward to that. Right? I don't like the negative. I don't like to be sitting here going, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. No, that's not true. I would much prefer to be sitting around talking about the things that are true. Footnote 7. Agnus Castus, Vitex Agnus Castus, called chaste tree in Abraham's balm. Well, that would be good for Abraham. The name means chaste lamb. Pliny says it is not very different from the willow, but has a more pleasant smell. The Greeks call it Lygos or Agnos from the fact that the matrons of Athens, during the Thesmorphia, festival honoring Demeter, a period when the strictest chastity is observed, are in the habit of strewing their bed with the leaves of this tree. From both, larger and smaller, trees, also a liniment is prepared for the bites of spiders, but it is quite sufficient to rub the wounds with the leaves. And if a fumigation is made from them, or they are spread beneath the bed, they will repel the attacks of all venomous creatures. They act also as an aphrodisiac. Antiphrodisiac? Is that an aphrodisiac spelled wrong, or is that an anti-aphrodisiac? And it is the tendency of this particular that they neutralize the venom of the Phalangium spider, the bite of which has an exciting effect upon the generative organs. Oh, so it is an anti-aphrodisiac. Interesting. Keep the meat down instead of rising. That's not something that you normally see people desiring, and that's funny. I don't know what this plant is, right? If you are familiar, if this is the actual name of it, I'm not sure. There are things that you can use to counteract a spider bite. I have, right? And so I use hydrogen peroxide. I know, it seems wild. How has nobody ever thought about that? But I've been bitten by spiders many times in my life. Some of those I did not treat, and they festered a little bit. And then some of them I noticed, and I put peroxide on, and I had no problems. That's not necessarily causative. It might be correlation, but it does work, right? And every time since I've done it that I've seen a spider bite, or an ingrown hair, or a variety of other things, even mosquito bites, or like sticker pricks, all of those things can be neutralized. It's really cool. Now, I don't know if there's a time limit placed upon that or what, but it does appear to work. Gerard says, Agnus castus is a singular medicine and remedy for such as would willingly live chaste, for it withstands all uncleanness or desire to the flesh, consuming and drying up the seed of generation. In what sort soever it be taken, whether in powder only, or the decoction drunk, or whether the leaves be carried about the body, for which cause it was called castus, that is to say, chaste, clean, and pure. You know, if I didn't know better, I would assume that this was saltpeter, which the military used to put in their eggs to give you a saltpeter. Footnote 8. Agates. See Note 7, Chapter 17. In addition to the moss or tree agate, the Greeks and Romans had great faith in the talismanic virtues of all other agates, wearing them to avert sickness, regarding them particularly as an antidote to the bite of an asp, if taken powdered in wine, or as an infallible cure for the sting of a scorpion, if tied over the wound. And again, none of these stones are going to do anything to your blood supply or anything that is inside of you, right? You can apply a liquid to you and it can be absorbed, and that can make a difference. Sticking a stone on your skin does absolutely nothing to a poison. Like, absolutely nothing. And I don't even have to keep that in the realm of speculation, right? I don't have to say that there's my assumption that it doesn't do. It is pretty empirically provable that sticking an agate on someone who is suffering from a scorpion bite is not going to cure it. I am fairly positive that we can just state that clearly. All right, I think we are caught up on footnotes. Nope, we need 9. Okay, so peony officinus, a tall plant with large round red or white flowers. The name derives from Paeon, physician to the gods of Olympus. Gerard says it is called, of some, lunaris or lunaria peonia, because it cureth those that have the falling sickness, which some men called lunaticos or lunatic. This is most likely epilepsy. There are medicines that have been derived from plants that help with epilepsy. I'm not sure that they are derived from the peony, but that is a possibility. So at least this one is in the realm of possibility, right? It is at least in the realm of possibility that you can eat a plant and it affect you internally. That is in the realm of possibility. All right, now back to the text. Oh, no, it ain't either. We got 10 and 11 in here. Well, we didn't get to topaz, right? We'll do 10 and we'll come back. Well, the topaz against spiritual heats, such as our covetous lust and all manner of excesses. So now we will do 10 and 11. That is the wrong book. All right, right here. 10, coral. Coral was much favored in the treatment of children's diseases. It was worn or carried as a charm against whooping cough. Not going to do anything. Teething problems. fits and colic, and was powdered and drunk in water for stomach cramps. Jared treats coral as a plant. Burnt coral drieth more than when it is unburnt, and being given to drink in the water, it helpeth the grippings of the belly. If the patient have an ague, then it is with better success ministered in water, for the coral cooleth, and the water moisteneth the body. By reason thereof it restraineth the burning heat in agues. This is one that is going to be possible, but not the entirety of the footnote, right? Favorite in the treatment of children's diseases is going to be not so much, right? Carrying it or wearing it is not going to do anything for you. It is a stone. But grinding calcium, especially calcium carbonate, which is what coral is absolutely going to create an antacid. It is a lime-based substance. It is naturally going to be basic, and therefore it is naturally going to be an antacid. And so if you are caught in the burning heat of the eggs, which is indigestion, then it's going to work. It absolutely will. Almost certainly. I haven't put it into practical application, but the theory is sound. Calcium carbonate is Tums. 11. Topaz. In modern times, a golden transparent stone. Pliny uses this name for peridot, a soft, greenish-yellow, transparent stone mined in ancient times from St. John's Island, which lies 35 miles southeast of Ras Benis, Egypt. Wait, southeast? That's got to be in the Red Sea, right? Juba says that there's an island in the Red Sea called... Maybe I can just read and get the answers. Called Topazos, at a distance of 300 stadia from the mainland. That it is surrounded by fogs and is often sought by navigators in consequence. And that, owing to this, it received its present name. The word topazin meaning to seek in the language of the troglodyte. Wow! I did not realize that we had written records of the vocalizations of the troglodyte. No clue. Right? Now, I'm assuming that the troglodyte is the same as what we currently refer to as cavemen, right? The unevolved of the species. Now, I could be wrong in that, and it doesn't even make a difference, but it is funny. The belief that this stone had a moderating virtue seems to have arisen from an error in copying by Marbodus, who renders Pliny's Lium Sentit, fills the file, an example is relatively soft, into Lunum Sentiere Patur, is thought to fill the moon. Hence, in the Book of Secrets. If topaz is good also against lunatic passion or grief, and again, wearing the stone is going to do absolutely nothing, right? You can invest energy into it and filter, that is possible. Wearing it by itself with no energetic investment is not going to do anything. All right, back to the text. The like inclination is there also of pismears against the herb Origanus. And we'll go ahead and check that one out. It's not a whole series though. Origanus adds to killed by the odors of origanum, lime, or sulfur. Yeah, well, lime and sulfur both will kill ants. I don't know about Origanus. When they would symbolize the departure of ants, they engrave origanum. For if this plant be lain down over the spot from which ants issue, it causes them to desert it. Well, I would very much like to have that plant. That would be a nice one. I live in the land of piss ants, right? We have fire ants out the yazoo down here. Against the herb Origanus and the wing of a bat and the heart of a lapwing, from the presence of which they fly. Also, origanum is contrary to a certain poisonous fly which cannot endure the sun, and resists salamanders, and loathes cabbage with such a deadly hatred that they destroy one another. So, cucumbers hate oil and will run themselves into a ring, lest they should touch it. Alright, so, there are things that you can plant together which will inhibit each other from growing. They are antithetical plants, right? We have plants that it can work in accordance with each other. The three sisters: squash, corn, and beans. Squash, corn, and beans. That is the right. The corn makes the stalk. The beans go up the stalk. The squash spreads out and covers the ground, preventing grass from growing. They all work in accordance with each other. One uses nitrogen, one uses potassium, the other one uses magnesium. They work in accordance with each other. One is nitrogen fixing, one uses it. Like, they all work together. There are other plants that work opposite. They use the same nutrients, therefore they fight for the same nutrients. Or they emit certain chemicals which hinder other plants from growing in the area. Oak trees, for instance, produce tannin, and tannin stops growth of plants underneath the oak tree. That is why underneath most oak trees there is nothing growing. It is because the soil has been turned bitter by the oils from the acorns. And so, loathes cabbage with the deadly hatred that they destroy one another? Absolutely valid. Absolutely can be a thing. Not saying it is a thing, saying it can be. It is logically concluded that we can do this. Some of the other stuff, not so much. And it is said that the gall of a crow makes men afraid and drives them away from where it is, and also certain other things. Now, gall is a fluid produced by the bile ducts, right? You have gallstones in your gallbladder, and that is surrounded by a secretion of an acid. That acid is one of the things that breaks apart the fats that you eat. And so, crows probably have some gall, but I doubt that it makes anyone afraid, right? Now, if they see you reach into a crow and rip out the gallbladder, then maybe. So a diamond, both disagree with the lodestone. We have already seen twice that that is not correct. That being said by it, it will not suffer iron to be drawn to it, and sheep fly from frog parsley, as from some deadly thing. Let's see what sheep parsley has for us. Alright, well this says frog parsley. The plant is not known. The Oxford English Dictionary speculates that it may be the same as fool's parsley, a European garden weed very like parsley in appearance with the poisonous qualities of hemlock. Oh boy, that's an interesting one. It looks like parsley, but it can kill you. Or perhaps marsh parsley. An old name for smallage or wild celery is intended. There was a kind of parsley called sheep's parsley, but unfortunately this also is unknown. Back to the text. A deadly thing, and that which is more wonderful, nature hath pictured the sign of this death in the livers of sheep, in which the very figure of frog parsley being described doth naturally appear. So goats do hate garden basil, as if there were nothing more pernicious. So, we don't know what frog parsley is, but we can find out. All we have to do is go and look at the sheep of a sheep's liver. Right? We just have to go kill a sheep, and then we can identify what this thing is because they look the same. Do goats hate garden basil? Let's see what the footnote is. Garden basil, Ocmum basilicum. I've got a couple of those growing in my front yard right now. Also called sweet basil. Chrysippus has exclaimed as strongly too against Ocmum as he has against parsley, declaring that it is prejudicial in the stomach and the free discharge of the urine, and is injurious to the sight, that it provokes insanity too and lethargy, as well as diseases of the liver. Wow. And that it is for this reason that goats refuse to touch it. Hence, he comes to the conclusion that the use of it ought to be avoided by man. Succeeding ages again have warmly defended this plant. It has been maintained, for instance, that goats do eat it, and that the mind of no one who has eaten of it is at all affected, and that mixed with wine, with the addition of a little vinegar, it is a cure for the stings of land scorpions and the venom of those found in the sea. Basil is a wonderful plant. It contains all kinds of various aromatics that are beneficial in your life. Like basil is slam packed, full of micronutrients, right? Macronutrients, things that are very good for you. Especially if you got the darker varieties of basil. There's a purple basil, there's a black basil. Those contain all kinds of extra things that are good for you too. But even just regular sweet basil is slam packed full of good things. It is an antibiotic, antimicrobial, so you can use that and rub it on a cut and it will actually affect something, right? And now I don't know about the sting of a land scorpion. Maybe that's a little bit acidic and the base that is part of the plant helps. That is a possibility in the same way that hydrogen peroxide works. Now, I haven't been stung by a scorpion. I've never tested this, so take it how you want it. Alrighty. And again, amongst animals, mice and weasels do disagree. Let's check out weasels. Alright, 15. Mice and weasels. Of the weasel, Goldsmith says, "It makes war upon the rats and mice, and with still greater success than the cat, for, being more active and slender, it pursues them into their holes, and after a short resistance, destroys them." I don't know why that is a footnote. And again, amongst animals, mice and weasels do disagree. Okay, I see what you're saying there. Mice and weasels do disagree. Whence it is said that mice will not touch cheese. What? And if the brains of a weasel be put into the rennet, and besides that, the cheese will not corrupt with age. Whence it is said that mice will not touch cheese, if the brains of a weasel be put into the rennet. Okay, let's look at the footnote before I make a comment. Rennet is the mass of curdled meat, milk, taken from the stomach of a suckling calf or other animal, used to cause milk to curdle in the making of cheese. That is partially correct. It is not curdled milk, although there is probably curdled milk when they harvest it. You can, however, get rennet from a fig tree, so you don't have to kill the animals. Rennet is the part that causes the coagulation when you are making cheese. Again, one of those things that I happen to have done. And so you boil your milk, you add your rennet, and it causes all of the fats and the proteins to cling together. And then you get the whey, which separates from it, and then you can make cheese from the curds. Curds and whey, right? It is a secretion that is made in the mass of a suckling calf or lamb or something, that mammal that drinks milk, and it allows them to be able to digest it. Probably human infants make the same thing. I don't know for sure. I do know that you can make it from the leaves of a fig tree, and it is a less intense rennet, therefore it takes more to make the same effect, but it is a vegetarian option for those of you who are interested in that type of a thing. And so milk does indeed come from rennet. Now, whether you should put the brains of a weasel in your rennet is a different question altogether. There are things called free radicals that reside in brains, and they can cause problems. We as a species do not generally eat brains. That is not to say perfectly, because I have an aunt right now that will fight you to the death for a squirrel brain. Right? If you're making squirrel stew, she wants the heads. She wants the brains every time, and she will fight you for it. I've got other family that will eat pig brains and eggs. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to eat brains, but out of all of the things that you can eat, it is one of the most likely to cause a more significant problem down the line. If the brains of a weasel be put into the rennet, and besides that, the cheese will not corrupt with age, and that is going to be a lie. It may get some extension, but it is not going to be forever. So, a lizard is so contrary to scorpions that it makes them afraid with its very sight, as also it puts them into a cold sweat. Therefore, they are killed with the oil of them, which oils also cures wounds made by scorpions. Okay, so once again, how do you know that a lizard has a cold sweat or a scorpion, right? This is saying that a lizard is so contrary to scorpions that seeing a lizard makes the scorpions break out in a cold sweat. Really? These guys with the exoskeleton, these guys with the bones on the outside of their body, they're sweating. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're saying here? That the scorpions are going to break out in a sweat? Because I can pretty much empirically state that is not a thing. Now, metaphorically make them scared? Maybe. Some lizards eat scorpions. That is a thing. Some scorpions eat lizards. That's a thing as well. And the oil of a lizard? I'm not oiling a lizard. I'm not making oil out of a lizard. I do know that if you eat a lizard, you will get sick. I do know that. They are toxic to humans. Don't eat them. That is probably going to extend to if you make a derivative substance from the flesh, including oil, which would come from the fat, I guess. But if you make this substance and you put it on an open wound, there is a very high likelihood that you will not survive the endeavor. Back to the text. There is also an enmity betwixt scorpions and mice. Footnote 17. And a mouse, put under the prickling of scorpions, delivereth a man because she is contrary and feareth not him. Okay, yeah, sure. If you take a mouse and put it under the scorpion, right, and it gets stung, it's not going to hurt it. No, that's not going to happen. Delivereth a man because she is contrary? What do you mean? Maupertuis put 3 scorpions and a mouse into the same vessel together, and they soon stung the little animal in different places. The mouse, thus assaulted, stood for some time upon the defensive, and at last killed them all, one after another. He tried this experiment in order to see whether the mouse, after it had killed, would eat the scorpions. But the little quadruped seemed entirely satisfied with the victory, and even survived the severity of the wounds it had received. That does not mean that it is immune, right? That means that it survived. You can be stung by a scorpion and survive. You are not immune to the poison. Other animals have that ability as well. There may very well be that rats or mice are immune to poison, but scorpions are hunters and mice are prey. Alright, back to the text. Wherefore, if a mouse be applied to a prick or wound made by a scorpion, it cures it, as it is reported. So you're not even taking the oil of this one, you're just rubbing a mouse on the wound. I'm sure that's effective. There is also an enmity betwixt scorpions and stalibors, asps, and wasps. It is reported also that nothing is so much an enemy to snakes as crabs, and that if a swine be hurt therewith, they eat them and are cured. So you are saying that if a swine gets bitten by a snake, it eats a crab. Yeah, I'm going to say no to that one too. Not that pigs will not eat crabs, because pigs will eat anything. Right? They are only second to goats with consuming absolutely anything that they can put their mouth upon. Pigs will dispose of a body, not the bones. However, those will come out. So if you're using pigs to dispose of bodies, there's still going to be some evidence. But I doubt very seriously that a pig gets struck by a snake and then goes and looks for a crab. The sun also being in Cancer, serpents are tormented, because that is a logical conclusion. Footnote 18. In Cancer, the summer solstice, the longest day of the year when the sun is highest in the sky, occurs while the sun is in Cancer. maybe entering Cancer, right? Because that's right on the crux. The midsummer's December or June the 21st. And that is when the transition happens between Gemini and Cancer. So it's kind of hit or miss either way on the solstice, which one it's going to be in. I know it is commonly attributed to Cancer, but my own sign is not in Cancer on the day or in Gemini on the day of my birth, so don't take it for granted. Alright. Serpents are tormented. Also, the scorpion and crocodile kill one another. And if the bird ibis doth but touch a crocodile with one of its feathers, he makes him immovable. The bird called bustard flies away at the sight of a horse, and a hart runs away at the sight of a ram, and also of a viper. And we will go ahead and get, 19 through 23. 19. Scorpion and crocodile. When they would symbolize one enemy engaging with another equal to himself, they depict a scorpion and a crocodile, for these kill one another. There is no instance in which a scorpion is going to kill a crocodile. I mean, I guess hypothetically, if it gets stuck in the crawl in exactly the right way, then it will suffocate it. But there is no % chance that a scorpion is going to poison a crocodile to death. That is not going to happen. He is not going to be able to penetrate into the hide far enough to get to the bloodstream. Not going to happen. Not going to have enough toxicity contained within his poison sac to invest into the crocodile. It's just simply not a possibility. 20. The ibis. The sacred or Egyptian ibis, about 2.5 feet in length, with white and black plumage, with a long curved beak. The Egyptians held that it was the bird of Teote, whom the Greeks called Hermes Trismegistus, and venerated it as the destroyer of serpents. Now that is entirely true. Right? This is a fish-eating bird. There is a highly likely chance that it would come across serpents and that it would eat them. Its plumage symbolized the light and dark phases of the moon with which the bird was linked. Teote was the moon god in his capacity as a regulator, responsible for the creation of the moon. Since the crocodile was the beast of Set, arch foe of Isis and her protector, Teote it is not surprising, the myth, that ibis feathers frightened and killed crocodiles grew up. In this context, see the account given by Herodotus of the antagonism between ibises and flying serpents. Agrippa's reference comes from Horapollo. When they would denote a rapacious and inactive man, they portray a crocodile with the wing of an ibis on his head. For if you touch him with the wing of an ibis, you will find him motionless. Bustard. 21. Bird of the genus Otis, particularly the great bustard. The largest European bird, weighing up to 30 pounds. It prefers running to flying and feeds upon frogs, mice, worms, turnip tops, and other vegetation. When they would symbolize a man that is weak and persecuted by a stronger, they delineate a bustard and a horse, for this bird flies away whenever it sees a horse. That is true, right? They are related to our, we call them cow shit birds down here, but most birds will fly away if they were approached by a larger animal. 22. Of a ram. When they would symbolize a king that flies from folly and intemperance, they delineate an elephant and a ram, for he flies at the sight of a ram. Now that I do not have any context for. An elephant has been rendered a stag by Trebasius in his Latin translation. Alright, I think we got to 23. Yeah. We'll get back to 24. 23. Of a viper. When they would symbolize a man that is quick in his movements, but who moves without prudence and consideration, they portray a stag and a viper, for she flees at the sight of a viper. Most things will flee at the sight of a viper. Alright. An elephant trembles at the hearing of the grunting of a hog, so doth a lion at the sight of a cock. Really? He's mad about that? Oh, you mean a chicken. And panthers And panthers will not touch them that are anointed all over with the broth of a hen, especially if garlic hath been boiled in it. Okay, so 23 to 25. I did it again. All right. 23 of a viper. Well, we did that one. 24. Grunting of a hog. When they would symbolize a king that flies from a trifler, they depict an elephant with a hog, for he flees upon hearing the voice of the hog. I do not have context, but I doubt it. The sight of a cock. In the next place, there are many solar animals, such as lions and cocks, which can participate according to their nature of a sudden solar divinity. Whence it is wonderful how much inferiors yield to superiors in the same order, though they do not yield in magnitude and power. Hence it is said that a cock is very much feared, and, as it were, reverenced by a lion, the reason of which we cannot assign from matter or sense, but from the contemplation alone of a supernal order. So just in your head. For thus we find that the presence of a solar virtue accords more with a cock than with a lion. This will be evident from considering that the cock, as it were, with sudden hymns, applauds and calls to the rising sun when he bends his course to us from the antipodes, and that the solar angels sometimes appear in forms of this kind, who, though they are without shape, yet present themselves to us who are connected with shape, in some sensible form. Sometimes, too, there are demons with a leonine front, who, when a cock is placed before them, unless they are of a solar order, suddenly disappear, and this because those natures which have an inferior rank in the same order always reverence their superiors. Proclus de Sacrificio et Magia, a fragment preserved from the Latin translation, given in full by Thomas Taylor. Alright, I don't think we got to the turtle yet. Okay. There is also an enmity between foxes and swans, bulls and dolls, amongst birds, and some are at perpetual strife one with another, as also with other animals, as dolls and owls, the kite and crow, the turtle and ringtail, Agrippas and eagles, harts and dragons. We will do 26 through 28. Turtle, sea turtle dove. 27 is a ringtail hawk, which is the female of the hen harrier or blue hawk. It was thought to be a separate species until the beginning of the last century. And 28 Agrippas is a kind of vulture. Alright, we are here. Also, amongst water animals, there is an enmity, as betwixt dolphins and whirlpools. Whirlpools are an animal? Mullets and pikes, lampreys and congers. Also, the fish called porte-contrail makes the lobster so much afraid that the lobster, seeing the other but near him, is struck dead. The lobster and conger tear one the other. Alright, so that is 29 through 32. Whirlpools, or thoroughpool, the old name for a kind of whale. Okay, perhaps the killer whale, which will eat other sea mammals when it can catch them. 30. Lampreys. A scaleless fish a little over a foot long, shaped like an eel with a round mouth. It attaches itself by suction to a large fish, rasps a hole in its side, and lives on fluid and blood until the host dies. 31 is a conger eel, which grows from 6 to 10 feet in length. It is powerful and voracious. And a porte-contrail is an octopus. The civet cat is said to stand so in awe of the panther that he hath no power to resist him or touch his skin, and they say that if the skins of both of them be hanged up one against the other, the hair of the panther's skin fall off. And Horus Apollo said in his hieroglyphics, if anyone be girt about with the skin of a civet cat, that he may pass safely through the middle of his enemies and not be afraid at all. Alright, so that is 33 and 34. Skin fall off. When they, ancient Egyptians, would symbolize a man overcome by his inferiors, they depict two skins, one of a hyena and the other of a panther. For if these two skins be placed together, the panther shoots its hair, but the other does not. The hyena and civet were sometimes confused together by writers in the Middle Ages. 34. Horace Apollo saith, when they would denote a man who passes fearlessly through the evils which assail him, even unto death, they delineate the skin of a hyena. For if a man gird his skin about himself and pass through any of his enemies, he shall be injured by none of them that pass through fearlessly. Confidence can do things, but then wearing the skin is not. Also, the lamb is very much afraid of the wolf and flies from him. That is probably one of the truest things said so far. And they say that if the tail or skin or head of a wolf be hanged upon the sheepcote, the sheep are much troubled and cannot eat their meat for fear. That one is entirely likely. Right? Just having the smell of a predator in the place where you are supposed to be safe is going to put an animal off of its feed. And Pliny makes mention of a bird called marlin that breaks crow's eggs, whose young are annoyed by the fox, that she also will pinch and pull the fox's whelps, and that the fox herself also, which the crows see, they help the fox against her, as against a common enemy. Footnote 35. Asalon is the name given to a small bird that breaks the eggs of the raven, and the young of which are anxiously sought by the fox, while in turn it will peck at the young of the fox and even the parent itself. As soon as the ravens espy this, they come to its assistance as though against a common enemy. The acanthus, goldfinch, too, lives among the brambles. Hence it is that it also has an antipathy to the ass, because it devours the bramble blossoms. The atheus, titmouse, and the anthus, yellow wagtail, too, are at such mortal enmity with each other that it is the common belief that their blood will not mingle, and it is for this reason that they have the bad reputation of being employed in many magical incantations. Alright. I've only got one thing to note of this, right? Ravens are smart, right? Ravens and crows are very smart birds, and they have the capacity to remember things. And so it is entirely likely that a raven would come to the assistance of a fox that is going or being attacked by a predator of its young. That is definitely a thing. You can piss off a raven and it will remember you. And it will tell everybody else. Esalon perish. The Aegythius, so small a bird as it is, has the antipathy to the ass, for the latter, when scratching itself, rubs its body against the brambles and so crushes the bird's nest, a thing of which it stands in such dread, that if it only hears the voice of an ass when it brays, it will throw its eggs out of the nest, and the young ones themselves will sometimes fall to the ground in their fright. Hence it is that it will fly at the ass and peck at its sores with its beaks. From the above two quotations, it can be seen that Agrippa has derived his material from Pliny, but in a confused form. The Asalon is a marsh harrier, also called rust kite or moor buzzard, and is said to be the smallest type of buzzard. The name was also applied to the merlin, one of the smallest yet boldest of the European falcon. The little bird called linnet, living in thistles, hates asses because they eat the flowers of thistles. Also, there is such a bitter enmity betwixt the little bird called Esalon and the ass that their blood will not mix together. We read those footnotes already. And that at the braying of the ass, both the eggs and the young of the Esalon perish. There is also such a disagreement betwixt the olive tree and harlot, that if she plant it, it will either be always unfruitful or altogether wither. That is almost certainly untrue. The olive was sacred among the Greeks to Pallas Athene and was regarded as an emblem of chastity. That does not mean that it was. A lion fears nothing so much as fired torches. They are indeed fearful of flame. Let's look at footnote 38. When they would denote a man calmed by fire, even during anger, they portray lions and torches. For the lion dreads nothing so much as lighted torches, and is tamed by nothing so readily as by them. A lion fears nothing so much as fire torches, and will be tamed by nothing so much as by these. And the wolf fears neither sword nor spear, but a stone. by the throwing of which a wound being made, worms breed in the wolf. Again, kind of true, but not really. When they would denote a man who is fearful lest accidents should happen unexpectedly to himself, they depict a wolf in a stone, for it fears neither iron nor a stick, but a stone only. And indeed, if anyone throw a stone at him, he will find him terrified. And whenever a wolf is struck by a stone, maggots are engendered from a bruise. Again, you can hurt an animal. Maggots might come from the injury that you inflict. It is entirely possible to hurt an animal with a stone with a wound. That does not mean that just striking it will cause a wound, or that it will cause maggots to appear in a wound. A horse fears a camel so that he cannot endure to see so much as his picture. An elephant, when he rages, is quieted by seeing of a cock. A snake is afraid of a man that is naked, but pursues a man that is clothed. A mad bull is tamed by being tied to a fig tree. Amber draws all things to it besides garden basil, and those things which are smeared with oil, betwixt which there is a kind of natural antipathy. And that's going to bring us to the end of this particular exploration. Once again, hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat confusing topic, right? There is a whole lot of bad information in here. I understand that I have some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. I really thought we were going to be getting meat in this book. I really did. I thought that finally we had found something. Something. It was referenced in such glowing light, and I guess I should have taken it with a grain of salt. It was coming from Levi. There's not much in this that is useful at all. We have not found a whole lot useful at all. It may be that there is some use coming from this, but to be honest, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels on this one. This feels like a dead effort. It feels like there is not going to be a whole lot to draw out of it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to continue it. Now, if you know that there is going to be some meat in this book, let me know, or else I may just try to find something else. If you really want to see me finish this off, you can let me know. I will do it. But honestly, none of this is even logical. It doesn't make sense. And that is trying to remove the lens of history, right? The lens of seeing through to the past. We have scientific discoveries that allow us to come to conclusions that are more in line with truth. Now, some of them may still be false, but for the most part, we can empirically test and see whether something is true or not. That was not what was happening here, right? This was, I heard a rumor somewhere one time about this thing that might happen and recording it as though it is true, and I am not a fan of that at all. There is a lot of information in here that people can take and they can try, and it won't be beneficial. I'm not a big fan of wasting energy or time, and this kind of feels like that. So if you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment, whether you agree or disagree with anything. Let me know if you are interested at least, right? I know people are interested in the studies. This might not be the study to continue. If you like what I'm doing, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow, throw me a comment. If you agree or disagree, put it in the box, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If there is another work with more meat, drop that in the box, please. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of my book where I teach you to do magic without all of the bullshit. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.